Welcome to Health Coach Tip Tuesday. I have a very special guest with me this week, Jenn Malecha.
Hello, everybody.
So Jenn is actually going to be one of the speakers at our FDN Educational Symposium that is going to be on October 1st and 2nd. And today we're going to be talking about her talk, which is all about client compliance and engagement strategies.
Yes, I'm so excited about this because client compliance is incredibly important, right? For our clients to get results, and then those turn into testimonials for us, which we can utilize then for as marketing tools in order to help us find and enroll more clients. So we really want to make sure that we're paying attention and focusing on our client compliance and engagement. And I'm excited to share some different strategies around that today. And of course, we'll be talking about that in more detail at the upcoming symposium, which is happening October 1st through the 2nd, right, Jess?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yes, going to be 2 packed days of speakers, talks, roundtables, and all for a very reasonable price. I think it's like $149. Super good for 2 days worth of amazing content. And especially with your talk, like this is such a great one, right? Like you said, client compliance gets them better results, but then also works in your favor because you'll get more referrals when they do well.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And as the saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And your client's success solely relies upon their compliance and engagement and the recommendations that you make for them. So the question is, well, how do you get them to drink the water that you're providing? And I hear this from practitioners all the time, is that they are really frustrated that clients aren't following through with the recommendations that they're providing, or sometimes clients are even no-showing their appointments. And so then they're not even showing up to receive the water that we have to make them healthy. And so we really, like I said earlier, want to focus and tackle this topic because it ultimately is going to determine the success of your business and your ability to have the impact in the world that you want to have and being able to help people, right?
Yes. Yes,
Great.
Fantastic. And for those of you who are joining us this week, we're streaming on our platform, and Jenn's also streaming on her Facebook. So we've a lot of people, I'm sure, that are going to be joining us from all different places. And if you guys comment below today, we're going to send you a link to get Jenn's free client onboarding checklist.
Mm-hmm.
Very valuable.
Yes, because in this checklist, I actually outline a lot of the touch points and things that you should be considering in order to engage your clients in your programs and to get them to be compliant with following through with what it is that you want to be doing, what you want them to be doing, especially in the onboarding process of when you enroll a new client. We want to engage them right from the beginning, and there's various ways that we can do that and different tools and tactics and best practices that I share in there in regards to how do you get them engaged right from the beginning when they enroll in one of your programs, which essentially is setting an expectation or setting them up for success in a path with the rest of the program as well. So I'm honored to be here talking about this and excited to give you guys this great tool that has really helped me in my business too.
Yeah, it's such a great topic too. And I can't wait to hear you talk about it during the symposium a little bit more in depth. So what can you share with us today that's not really giving away too much about your talk, and why does somebody want to come to the symposium to really listen to you go in depth into this?
Yeah, definitely. So again, I think that this is a place where a lot of practitioners kind of like get stumped or struggle sometimes when they're feeling like, oh, clients aren't getting results, for example. I mean, as practitioners, we're extremely knowledgeable. We have this plethora of wisdom. And at the same time, we all have been there when clients just aren't getting the results that they should be getting. And oftentimes, I think the kind of knee-jerk reaction is to think, oh, I need to do more testing, or I need to look for more supplements, or I need to do this other thing. And I actually say that the first thing we need to go back and look at is compliance. Especially if you're an FDN practitioner, right from the beginning, you do the series of lab tests, you put together a dress protocol, so recommendations for diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. And there's reasonable expectation that if somebody follows through with those recommendations, that they should be getting results within 90 days. They should be feeling better over the course of 90 days. So when a client has plateaued or they're not getting, results, we want to go back and look at, well, are you compliant with the initial recommendations that I provided before we dive into more cost of supplements and lab tests and all that stuff, right? We want to make sure that our bases are covered. So what does that mean exactly, right? Well, there's a couple of like tactics and tools and best practices and transformational coaching techniques that I take a look at and use in order to help evaluate compliance and then also to encourage compliance in the program. So the first thing that we'll be discussing in more detail at the symposium is one, are you setting clear expectations and boundaries for the client's success? This really comes up a lot when practitioners are saying, people are no showing their appointments. And I would even back this up to say this happens with people before they become a client. Like when we're scheduling consultations, I see so many practitioners, kind of saying, I have people that are no showing my consultations. Like, should I be charging for them to hold them accountable to that? And I don't think that that's the first reaction that we should have. I think that we need to go back and look at what kind of clear expectations and boundaries did you actually create in order to support that client's or that person's success, right? So how easy did you make it for them to schedule the appointment? Are there, appointment reminders in place that help them? Are you communicating with them, in the session when you're working with somebody? I always say you should go ahead and book the next session before you close out the session that you're in, because everybody gets busy. The expectation of like, oh, I'm going to send you a link to book your next appointment. Then they forget, they get swept away by daily life. And now you're spending a ton of time following up with them to book that next appointment when we could have just nipped that in the bud right at the end of that session, right? And so this is where these are just some examples of how we set clear expectations and boundaries for clients to actually be successful. Another great, expectation that we could set is like, how do you actually handle your coaching sessions? So this is from a transformational kind of coaching technique or approach, which is something I've learned from studying NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is being really clear at the end of your sessions on what are the expectations. So at the end of my coaching sessions, I always wrap up with very specific and clear action items, usually about 3 to 5 of them, so that they have enough to work on in between our sessions. They know specifically what it is that they're supposed to be focusing on, but it's not too many that it's overwhelming and they're going to feel defeated trying to accomplish them, right? So now that they have this clarity, we can hold them accountable to that. And this is where we create compliance with the program instead of just dumping a bunch of information on them in a coaching session and then expecting them to take that information and implement it. We want to make it practical for them, right? So those are some transformational coaching techniques type of stuff that we'll be talking about at the symposium during my talk as well. Then we look at like, well, how do we keep them engaged like in between sessions, right? So there's obviously a high level of accountability when you're in a session with them. But if you're spacing out sessions like I do, even if it's once a week or every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks, the question becomes like, how do you actually create compliance and engage them in between the sessions? And this is where I think us as functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners or other similar practitioners or health coaches out there, this is where we bring a lot of value to the table, because I don't know how many times you've heard this or seen this, Jess, but like a lot of clients that I've worked with, they've worked with some really amazing like naturopaths or other types of practitioners. But one of their stumbling blocks is that they only get to meet with their naturopath or, other type of practitioner maybe once a month if they're lucky, but it's more like once every 3 months. So they feel a little bit lost in between, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly. So with in the work that we do, we have this flexibility to meet with them more frequently. But even when we meet with them more frequently, there's this space in between where we want to help them to create their own success. So this is where we can use tools like emails or something like Biochannic, where we can set custom trackers and have alerts go out to them every single day to nudge them along in the program, to keep their, attention focused on what it is that we want them to be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
So like a great example of this is in between my coaching sessions, because I space them out every 2 weeks, and then sometimes we go every 3 or every 4 as the person makes more progress and gets more comfortable and compliant with what they're doing. In between those sessions, I'm sending them what I call like a mid-session check-in email. So what happens is, as I just mentioned, in the session, we come up with very clear, like 3 to 5, action items that they're supposed to focus on till our next session. And so in between, when I'm sending this email check-in, it's actually very specific to, hey, how are you doing? And specifically, how are you doing with those action items that I provided for you? So that's where they're getting that accountability. And sometimes, they're on top of it and they're doing great. And other times they're like, oh my gosh, like I totally got swept up by life. My kid got sick. This happened. So like I haven't really had a chance to focus on this, but thanks for the reminder. And I'll make it a point to focus on these things before our next session comes, right? So this is
Yeah.
where we can utilize some of these like kind of technical tools to help engage them and nudge them along in the program. Like I said, I really love. Oh, go ahead.
God. I was going to say, when you do those mid-session, do you find like there's a sweet spot of how often, or is it maybe dependent on the person that they might, especially if you're just starting out to work with somebody, like do you have like a kind of formula that you use and then you might adjust with the client? If somebody's being a little bit more compliant, maybe you don't need to do as many check-ins with them, or you find somebody who is having a little bit of a harder time, maybe doing a little bit more frequently with them?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. And what I use to regulate that is actually the coaching sessions instead of the check-in emails. So this is where in the beginning, I start with a cadence of every 2 weeks. And then
Mm-hmm.
as the person is doing better and better, we'll lengthen those out. So the cadence is every 3 weeks and then eventually every 4 weeks. And they get that mid-session check-in email, like right smack in the middle of our session. So if we're, 2 weeks in between sessions, they get it the week in between. If we're going 3 weeks in between sessions, which is 21 days, then they get it at day 10 in between our sessions. Because I also want to, I think there's a ton of value in the in-person meeting where you can just extract more information from them. Like if we
Mm-hmm.
solely rely on email communication sometimes, we know, from this happens in our personal lives, it happens in our business life, that like all the details are not always like conveyed in an email, whether it's like tone of voice or being able to ask the right questions or being able to like visually see somebody's like physical response to the conversation. So this is also a way to like set expectations and boundaries as well. And this is actually something that I really like to talk about in creating your packages and like accounting for how many coaching sessions do you need to provide support and accountability? And then what do the email check-ins look like? How many of those are you doing, and calculating your time for that so that you make sure that you are valuing your time and getting paid, appropriately, essentially.
Of course.
So kind of related to your question, Jess, is like, if I do an email check-in with somebody and I find that they are struggling or they have a ton of questions, instead of going round and round back and forth with email, I will actually suggest, hey, I think that this really requires like a deeper conversation. Let's either hold it for your upcoming session because maybe it's happening soon, or why don't we go ahead and bump up your upcoming session? Let's schedule that sooner so that we can tackle some of these things and you can really get the support that you need, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is also an example of how we create compliance and engagement is us as the practitioner or the coach is recognizing somebody's needs and then making sure that we are providing the appropriate support and accountability to meet them where they are in their journey, instead of, being so rigid about maybe sticking to, oh, well, I only am supposed to be seeing them every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, like having that flexibility in that kind of way, basically.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Every person is a little bit different. And the reason they're coming to work with somebody like an FDNP or another health professional that's not a doctor is because they're looking for a little bit more individual support. But that support can vary depending on the person, and also probably varies depending on where they're at in that journey too. If something, I'm sure as you kind of unravel things with a client, they might hit a bump and need a little bit more support. But then once they get that confidence and they kind of get on that train, they might say, no, it's cool. I'm good. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I think it's great to have flexibility to meet clients where they are, essentially. And, honestly, one of the reasons that I decided to start with a cadence of every 2 weeks with my clients was because prior to that, I was actually meeting with them every week. And what I was finding was that clients were showing up to their session feeling defeated because they didn't have enough time in between our sessions to actually implement the things that I was teaching them or recommending. So this is another thing to notice in your business and in your practice is, are clients continually showing up feeling defeated? And maybe as a result of that, you want to do something to adjust the cadence and the structure of how you're working with them to ultimately set them up for success, right? Awesome.
Yeah.
One of the other things that's helpful that I mentioned is I use a tool called Biochannic. And I love Biochannic because you can set custom track there. So if we want clients to track the quality of their sleep, for example, or if their stress levels on a daily basis, or their activity levels, or their weight, whatever, or their blood glucose levels, or their ketone levels, whatever we want them to have a daily focus on, we can use something like Biochannic to create a custom tracker in Biochannic in their contact record. And then we can also set reminders and alerts to go out to them to remind them to track these things. So this is a great engagement tool to help them have accountability and focus to, okay, I need to be paying attention to this thing because, and then, as the saying goes, you can only see progress in what you're tracking. So for the client, it gives them some feedback about how their body is responding to certain things. It's a great visual aspect and tool for them. As a practitioner, it's also a way for me to have an insight to what's going on with them on a regular basis, which helps to curate the conversation that we're having when we're in our sessions together. And as I said, it's like a great little thing that just kind of keeps nudging them on a daily basis to like, hey, focus on these things because this is what we're working on. And ultimately, when they have that focus and that accountability and that compliance, they're going to get results as a result of that, right?
Of course. And that's also going to make them feel better, right? Like once it's hard when you first start out on this journey as a client, you don't know what to do. You're employing somebody to help you. And the reason you're employing somebody is because you don't know how to do this yourself. But then once we as FDNPs kind of help educate and, help a client to get that confidence with tools like Biochannic, where you don't have all the time, like, oh, I have to put this email out or I have to send this text message just to remind my client because you want them to be successful. It's easy for you, but then also great for them to receive that and go, oh, yeah, that's right. I have to do this thing. And so everybody ends up winning, right?
Exactly. Yes. And that's a great point that you just made, is that it also takes some of the workload and responsibility off of you as a practitioner when we set up some of these automated types of tools, whether it's like drip emails that are going to go out to them or something like the reminders in Biochannic, because then it's not reliant on you to remember to do it. These things are automatically happening that makes the client feel like they're getting a touch point from you on a regular basis. So it's also a way that we just deliver first-class service to our clients and make them feel really good about the process too.
I love that first-class service.
Yes, exactly. Which I always say that first-class service sells itself. So if you can be the Ritz-Carlton of health coaching, or your practice, whatever it is that you're doing in your whatever industry you're in, then that ultimately is also going to result in effortless referrals, right? And a steady
Mm-hmm.
stream of clients that are coming in, because when people have a really good experience, they go and tell everybody about it. And same thing when they don't have a great experience, they go and tell everybody about it. So like, if you purchase a product or you have a great experience somewhere, I guarantee you're telling your friends and family all about it. And we want our clients to be doing the same thing too.
Most
Which
definitely.
which kind of brings me to my last point here that we'll be covering in the at the symposium in more detail, is using incentives to encourage consistency with supplements and other program recommendations as well too. So there's different types of incentives that we can use with clients to help them stay encouraged. I was just working with a client the other day, and she's so great. She's got 2 kids, but she's super A-type personality, very business professional woman. And she is, one of the things that we came up with in our session is that she's going to put together an old school star tracking chart, like something that you would have in kindergarten. So she can track her compliance with the things I'm recommending and then reward herself. So we can also come up with these ideas for clients to implement rewards or incentive systems. But there's ways for us as practitioners to implement rewards and incentives systems within our clients too, whether that's like providing them with discounts on their supplements to encourage them to order them regularly through you, which also then probably benefits you financially as well. Or one of the things that I love to do halfway through the program is give them an encouragement gift. So the cost of that encouragement gift is built into my packages. They don't really know that or see that, but then they get this wonderful gift halfway through. And I implemented that because I noticed that in the beginning, clients were, there's so much change happening. They're feeling really great. They're making all this progress. They're noticing it. And then about halfway through, because they start feeling so great, they start to like not notice all the changes that are happening with them anymore. And that's where the encouragement gift comes in handy to kind of remotivate them and get them going. So there's various types of gifts that I provide based on the person and what their need might be, that we'll definitely be talking more about at the symposium, and how to utilize and leverage incentives to create client compliance and engagement. And some of these gifts as well are things that we can connect back to, like Biochannic, for example, to have additional tracking and accountability for sleep and exercise and so forth. So it's really like a cool, tool or tactic to use in order to create that client engagement and compliance. It all comes full circle with everything.
I remember when I went through your business training, when I read about the encouragement gift, it was something I had never thought about or considered, but so simple, right? Yet it means a lot. When a client receives something, it seems very thoughtful and really kind of, I would assume, kind of makes somebody take a step back and humbles them a little bit. Like, wow, we're working on sleep. So providing them maybe even just a very inexpensive sleep tracker could mean the difference for them. Like, oh, wow, I was thinking about getting one, but I wasn't sure which one. And then it just shows up at my house and, oh, yes. Jenn's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
And just one more thing for them to go and tell other people, like, Jenn really understands me. And then she, provides this thing, and this is the type of service you're going to get to work on your health. It's very individualized. Like, I could just imagine all the things they say.
Yes. I think that another example of this is my welcome gift. So this is something that I teach about as well too, including like a welcome gift in your packages. And the welcome gift is curated with items that are going to help them be compliant and successful as well. So like, for example, in the welcome gift that I provide, there's a supplement organizer in there. And because that's one of the first things that we start with is supplements. And everybody always feels a little like kind of overwhelmed, by the supplements, how to organize them and all that. So the supplement organizer is a great gift to get them started. They don't really know why they're getting it in the beginning, but once we get to that first session, we start talking about supplements, then it all comes, into focus for them. And I actually just had a client the other day email me about her supplement organizer. I mean, we're like 11 sessions into her program, and with the pandemic, she hasn't really traveled, so she hasn't had as much need for the supplement organizer, but she recently went on vacation and she sent me an email and she said, "Oh my God, thank you so much for that supplement organizer. It totally came in handy while I was on vacation last week and helped me organize and stay compliant with my supplements, and I feel great as a result." So it's little things like this, little things that we can do that can, like, again, create this amazing experience for the clients, set them up for success, then they get better results. Then they, tell everybody about you. They send you referrals, they provide testimonials for you, which ultimately helps to build your business. And the flip side of this is that when we're not engaging clients and not creating compliance, then we have low client retention rates. And your business is really only as solid as your client retention is. Like, you could be getting a ton of clients in through the front door, but if they're falling off on the back end once they've enrolled with you, then they're not creating streams of revenue for you. They're not ordering their supplements. They're not providing testimonials.
Yeah.
Maybe there's opportunities or things that you want to move them into after a one-on-one program, like a membership of some sort where they get continued support. But if they never made it through that first phase, then you basically have like a hole in the bottom of your boat. So you're not going to get very far, essentially. So I can't wait to talk more about this stuff at the symposium.
Yes.
And share more details about these things. Did we have any questions or anything from our viewers today that we should address?
We have not had anybody comment just yet. I'm sure they're so engaged with everything that you're saying, because really what we're talking about is client compliance and engagement strategies, but this is kind of business 101, right? Like, this is how do you set up a really good customer service business, because that's really what you're doing with people, is you're providing a service. And all these little things that you're talking about, whether it's keeping them accountable through tracking, incentives, welcome gifts, encouragement gifts, like, these are all just part of the experience of working with you as a practitioner. And it definitely kind of leads into that compliance, so that you keep that retention, so that you can get those testimonials, you can get those referrals and just build a business. So it's just like kind of wrapped into one, like a lot of different things that anybody could use for their business. But I'd love to know if any of you guys have any questions. We still have a few minutes. Feel free. Otherwise, make sure you do comment, because we're going to send you a fantastic gift that Jenn has provided for this week, which is a client onboarding checklist. You want to talk a little bit about what that is before we kind of wrap it up?
Yeah, definitely. So the checklist basically outlines a lot of the things that I kind of touched on today. So if you're sitting there trying to take notes and take it all in, just go get the client onboarding checklist. Because like I said, compliance and engagement actually starts at the beginning when we first enroll a client. And so the checklist will really outline for you what are all the things that you should be thinking about when you onboard a client, and how are we starting to create that engagement and that compliance, from the beginning, basically. So it'll help you organize that onboarding process to, immediately provide a great service experience, engage them, get them bought into what it is that you're doing with your programs. And then ultimately they're going to get better results if you make that connection with them right away, because they're going to feel very supported by you as well. So awesome. I see Joseph's interested in the list, sent us a comment here. So yes, definitely comment to get the list. Christy can't wait for the symposium. Jess, do you want to maybe provide any more details about the symposium? I feel like we didn't really talk about that in great detail. We kind of did in the beginning, but maybe now that more people have hopped on, share a little bit more about the symposium.
Yes. So FDN is putting together an educational symposium instead of doing a traditional conference this year. So it'll be on October 1st and 2nd. And actually, the tickets are only $129 for both days. And you're going to get the chance to see Jenn talking about everything we talked about here today. We haven't released the speakers just yet, but there's quite a few, and there's amazing topics that are going to be coming out. It is all online, so you can watch it from anywhere, and we will have a recording. So if you can't make it live, that's okay. Make sure you still get your ticket. And yeah, I mean, we'll be releasing the speakers soon. And it's about all we have so far, but you guys definitely don't want to miss it because this is a little bit different this year. We're going to be focusing a lot on the DRESS protocol. So Dress for Health Success is the FDN, where we focus on diet, rest, exercise, stress management, and supplementation with all of our clients. And each one of the speakers and roundtables is going to be focused on one area of dress and how they utilize that into their practice. So it's going to be really interesting and a lot of fantastic information that any of you guys can use in your practices.
Well, I'll be there. I know you're going to be there, Jess. And
Yep.
we hope to see everybody else there too. And Donna, we see your comment here, so you'll get the list also. Even if you guys are watching the replay, they'll be able to get the list, right, Jess?
Yes, definitely. So make sure you guys comment below. You're going to get to learn about client onboarding with Jenn's fantastic checklist. And we'll also send you more information about the Educational Symposium if you'd like to join us on October 1st and 2nd. But I feel like we've covered quite a bit today. And I'm sure there was tons of people taking notes because every time we have you on, Jenn, it's like so many amazing things that people can just take and they have to sit there and just digest it so they can implement it into what they do. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And for the ones who commented, we were learning a little bit about Jenn's talk, which is going to be about client compliance and engagement strategies. Is there anything else you want to leave us with this week, Jenn?
I would just say, take down all the notes, get the list from today. And I think the list will also help you to come prepared to the symposium as we expand more on this topic. So hope to see you guys all there.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Jenn, for joining me this week for Health Coach Tip Tuesday, every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, where we give you guys tips, tools, and resources to help your health coaching business. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenn.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.